Lawrence, you are at this feast. It's been like a couple of hours since the joust, and there are people assembled in Blackmere in the hall, and there's like a number of people all around. Many people have come up to you specifically to like pat you on the back and to say well done, and a lot of people that you had beaten had said as much as well. Um, you find yourself sort of cornered by Una Grover. Um, and so she's sort of positioned herself that she's sitting opposite you, and you're sort of actually in the corner of the room. Um, and like it's been already quite a lot with people coming up to you and saying congratulations, and you must feel elated. And I don't know if you do feel elated or not, or if you feel anything, but she's sitting opposite you, and she says, "You fought so well, my lord. Truly, you're a shining example of knightly virtue. I have to admit that I was quite surprised that you favored me. You did not seem so stricken when we first met."
Thank you, my lady. It is an honor to be blessed with such kind words. And to be truthful, you know, sometimes there is time that takes to understand such things.
It was also difficult to get a word in around the ladies' chamber in Shivers.
Yes, everyone loves to have their chance at words. The games that all people play around these parts can be tough sometimes to give anyone their proper due.
Yeah, a lot of games. In truth, Lord, I was sent here in the hopes that I might find a husband, and I don't mean to be overly blunt. I know I must seem doubly so to a southern knight with courtly manners like yourself, but I find you agreeable, and you gave me the crown.
I would not have given it so if I did not find similar things in you. I'll say probably like more coldly than the words would seem.
Right. Sure, so like sits there for a second. She like drums her fingers on the table. You're supposed to ask me, I think, my lord.
And there would be this kind of like awkward pause of like, oh, now. It'll kind of come across Lawrence's face. It would be an honor if you give me your hand then.
I'll have to think about
See
it.
if it can be arranged.
She
I'm
says
sure you will.
quickly and like smiling. I'll have to talk to my father about it, and so will you, actually. You'll have to come and visit. But I'm amenable
Of
to the
course.
idea.
I'm sure with some visiting and some negotiating, we can come to some agreement.
Yes, well, don't sound too excited, my lord.
Nor you.
Yeah, and she'll chat away to you, sort of for the rest of the chat at you, I guess, is more likely. Um, Up at the table where the other lords are sitting, wounded Lord Riswell is sitting at the top table, and his leg is set in a splint. He's like winced a little bit here and there throughout the evening, but he's like trying to be jovial and smile as much as possible. At some stage, he sort of looks in your direction, Willard, and sort of gestures for you.
I'll turn to Sir Morse next to me and give him some missive to leave the feast hall, and then I will look over to Ryder and gesture to the chair next to me that, of course, he may come and sit up next to the lord of the house.
Oh, sorry, it's Riswell with the broken leg, and he's gesturing for you to come to him.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said right.
No, yeah.
That being the case, I will not do that and stand up and walk over to him.
Yeah. He's sort of sitting, with his leg up on a stool, and he's making the best of it. You think it must be very painful. Broke it earlier this day, and so he's a little bit drunk. You think, or maybe drunk on Poppy's milk. But he says, "Lord Slade, I have to say this wedding has been enjoyable. You've made sure that it runs smoothly, even though there's been some injuries. And that's normal for a joust. I think your man Timos is a good man. He needs to be told as such, I'd say."
Fine idea, my lord. I agree, and I will tell him presently. It's true, many owe life and limb to him in this past week.
I think he took it surprisingly well, considering all that was happening. He's young.
He's a testament to the Citadel and to the Knights of the Mind.
He is. And how do you feel proceedings have gone, my lord?
Not as expected, which is to be expected.
They never do.
Presently, to my liking, soon our events will be concluded and the entire coast will be the better for it. I'm sure you agree.
I do. I have noticed your somewhat meteoric rise of late, and I commend you for it. You have gone and grown House Late from a minor house on the edge of the world to a significant house with real power on this stony shore. It's very impressive.
My thanks, Lord, but of course my two brothers before me contributed to that as much as these current endeavours.
Of course. It's been plagued with tragedy here.
Is that not the way of the North, my lord, for great lords and small alike?
It's the way of the world, I think. You have to find some joy where you can, I suppose.
He'll go to look at Tira and stop himself, but has already given himself away to the older men.
There you go. That's where I find mine as well. And in my children. Even if they're boorish or loud sometimes, unthinking boys. We're to be family, and Wyla will be my daughter, and you have my oath that I'll treat her as one of my own. And Jor's not a bad sort. He's young and he's arrogant, but he'll learn. He's sort of like apologizing.
I know this, and my thanks. There is power in the blood.
Wyla seems strong, and if you'll forgive the pun, wily. I think she'll tame him in no time.
She is willful too. They may find much to learn in each other.
We can hope.
And guide.
You seem a good man, Willard. Not good in the sense that the Southerners say it. I don't for a moment believe you to be pious, or even gentle. But I believe that you'll do what necessary for your house to succeed, and that's why I wish to ask you one thing. Just don't cause war here. The alliances here in the Stony Shore and in the Rills are a delicate thing. There are a lot of egos. A lot of lords who think they're beholden to no one, so I ask you, don't rise to insults as Ryder does. And don't follow in the tracks of Whitehill into isolation. You've achieved a great deal, be happy. Your children will be thrice and thrice again as well off as you were. Know when it's enough, is what I would say to you, my lord.
I thank you for your warning, my lord. Mayhaps I needed to hear it. Know that my ambition curbs at the utter safety of this coast and its unity.
Well, that would be a good thing. I think we can both agree.
There are old wounds that go deep here. And too often they have turned the hand of kin and kith against one another when always the sea wolves prowl. or the wild ones come down to raid, or the southerners cut down a white tree.
Indeed, it's in togetherness, I think, that we can face these problems, not in division.
It is by alliance and that power of that blood that I would bring that unity about, and he'll scan his eyes over trying to get the Lord to survey other like arranged marriages and like alliance that might be evident or exampled here.
As I say, your rise is not unpleasant to me. I think you've done it well. You haven't brought undue harm to this part of the world, and for that I'm grateful. A little more order up here would be useful, I think. Give the raiders from the sea something to think about before they land here and take what they want.
I will drink to that, and he'll fill the Lord's cup and then his own.
Jacoro is here at this feast, and he's sort of like standing in the space before the large table where the lords and ladies sit. He has this like strange bird with him. It's like brightly colored and it speaks, and he's like asking it questions and it's telling jokes, and people are like shocked by that, stunned by it. Like maybe maesters have seen ravens like crow a word or two, but this thing is like making all sorts of noises. It's doing horse impressions and pig impressions, and people are like falling out of their chairs at the laughter. And he goes on to like juggle swords and breathe fire and make coins disappear and reappear, and people seem very pleased and impressed. Is there anything anyone would like to do here? Or if you're not here, what are you doing?
Is this the actual... So this isn't the wedding feast?
It will
this
be.
is...
Yep. So it is like later tonight there'll be a bedding and it'll be done.
Okay, so I guess we'd all be here pretty much.
Yeah, unless you've like excused yourself for some reason or you're doing something else or whatever, you know?
I think with all the merriment going on and these bright colors, like the flames and the spectacle of Jacoro, and Jeremy will be remarking on this rainbow raven. Having never seen, like, I think up on the Stony Shore, everything's kind of, because of the nature of the light up here too, everything's usually dull, except for maybe the heart tree and the odd splash of color from flowers and stuff. So it just seems utterly alien. These just brightly colored bird, and but sort of mid spectacle, he'd probably look across and see how if Alf stands there, and because I imagine some rumors have started to swirl about what's happened with the birth and things like that.
Yeah, I would imagine that it's vaguely talked about, but no one is clear on what has happened. I don't think that would be like public knowledge or anything.
Yeah, so look to Alfstan to get an impression of his mood.
Alfstan will be there in body, but his eyes are glazed over, and he's you've tried speaking to him occasionally, and if you speak to him directly, it sort of pulls him out of some reverie, and he'll respond mechanically and then sort of sink back into some other place. He's here. He's looking. His squire has dressed him well for the occasion. He has new clothes on. you do notice he's got some sort of mud under his fingernails. There's a smell of wood smoke about him. You probably knew or heard that he dug up the grave that the maester had dug for the newborn, and instead pulled out the child and went off to the mere to with the intention to burn. He took some wood from the wood stack and a push cart and went out to burn the child with Widow Ranvi, and now he's just standing or sitting, but not really entering into the spirit of the thing. He's just a piece of stone with the festivities going on around him, but he's unaware of what's happening.
Yeah, I imagine we're all at tables, so I'd probably be sitting away from Elfstone at this point. But I would take that in, and if I see him get up to walk away, I'd probably follow him at some stage to get to exchange.
Jakara was
go ahead.
visibly nervous whenever he looks in Elfston's direction. He's remembering what happened. He doesn't know what happened, with Arya or the baby or anything, but he does know that he was like cornered by this man and like threatened and made to pray, and so he's quite nervous about the situation. He doesn't know the full circumstance. So
Is that nervousness, does that manifest, and would Willard be able to notice it from the head table?
I think with your superhuman insight, you would sense that he feels, I guess occasionally, like there would be a look in Alfie's direction, and one of like, I mean, it would only be like, half a second before he goes back into, oh, hey, like, performer. But I think it would be noticeable to Willard probably, yeah.
Obviously, he wouldn't know all the context or anything, but that would be a peculiar thing. Cool.
Wow. So the joviality of the feasting is kind of underpinned by all these strange tensions. And I guess looking at Lawrence too, because I was at the joust, I think, and I saw the dent in his armor, although it was kind of a hidden injury. But obviously we saw him ride again. And so there's another mystery at work.
Yeah, I mean, Willard had been told even that Lawrence was dead by the Maester, who was just sure of that fact. Like, is Timos expected to be here? Because I think he's, like, in such a delicate state that he would be resting if he was given leave to. But if he's expected to be here, he would be here. That'll be up to you, Willard. He doesn't have to? Okay.
Yeah, he won't be here.
Yeah, he needs to sleep for the first time in like 3 days. If he can, ever again.
He might be needed yet.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a weird atmosphere at the festivities here. Like some of the people seem to know something or feel something if they don't know it. There is, I think, probably like a palpable aura of something from Alfie, some sort of, I think it would be like hard to miss that level of like tragedy and sadness. And so people are trying to, at the party, just pretend like they don't notice it and sort of party around it. But I think there would be sort of a quietness that when people come within a certain radius of Alfie, that there would be a natural sort of quieting. Beyond that, like there are people like in different parts of the hall, like singing. Like Lord Ryder would like lead a few songs, as well as like some of the ladies and stuff would sing some songs, and there's entertainment and stuff as well. Like there'd be mummers and stuff here performing. Seasons of My Love, and what's the one? Lay My Lass in the Grass, and like a couple of other like sort of vaguely raunchy and then also very sweet sort of songs. And yeah, this goes on, like Jacaro is followed by singing, and then that's followed by those like a couple of dwarves who are riding dogs, and are like sort of mocking the joust that had just previously happened, and like, you know, putting on airs as if they are certain knights and stuff here, and there's like raucous laughter at that.
Does Sir Lawrence look like he needs rescuing?
I don't know that it would be rescuing, but I think it'd be pretty clear that either something's on his mind or he's just disinterested. He's just kind of like letting this onslaught sort of wash over him, like acknowledging where he has to. But there definitely wouldn't be any like spark of like engagement or like enjoyment or anything like that.
Yeah, maybe he'll just let it play out then and continue in the present company.
There's maybe like an hour will go by, and it starts to get a little later. And there's like a moment when the doors open of the hall, and like a man walks in. He's quite tall. Has this like wild long hair and sort of salt and pepper beard, and like a sword at his waist and a staff, and like a black robe, thick black robe, and a hint of a chain beneath it. And he like looks around the hall, having clearly not expected this. And sort of like looks for a face of someone who seems to know what's happening here. He doesn't look nervous or uncomfortable, just sort of like he wants to make the correct entrance.
I'll look for some signal or cue from the guards who let him in.
Yeah, there'd be a nod from them, like looking for you, I guess.
I'll excuse myself and maybe look. I think by now Lawrence has gone off with Alston, right? But sorry, Jeremy's gone off with Alston, but if Lawrence is still here, if I can catch his eye, I'll give him that, like, oh, be alert, something's up. And I'll, walk down towards these men and this man.
Yeah, Lawrence's eyes will kind of perk up at the sign of, at least not worry, but just, attention. And he'll kind of focus away to see what's happening from this new arriver, just in case he's needed.
As you approach, he'll like incline his head. And to present myself to Belfray, but I thought it to spend the night here. I'm Maester Dagon, my lord, sent from the Citadel.
Welcome, Maester. We've been expecting you. Come, let me introduce you to your charge.
Thank you. It's been a long journey.
As you can see, we are at feast. That being the case, I will have quarters appropriately arranged for you at once. And I'll gesture to the two men to take this guy to chambers.
There were a great many wounded outside. In a tent, my lord. Do you want me to see to them? I didn't see any other maester, nor healers there.
He goes to say, yes, of course, but then he stops himself and he'll look to Tira and summon her with his eyes. And I will introduce the two of them and then step back and then let her handle this to see what she does of it.
Yeah, I think she looks at the man with some suspicion. He has the look of an Iron Islander in every sense, like black.
And the name?
And the name, yeah. Sort of black hair, pale eyes. And he's quite tall. And there's something about him that's quite grabbing or something. People do have a tendency to look in his direction, you would notice. And so I think she would decide that he's definitely welcome to help with the wounded, since Timos is currently out of action. And he would agree, and then begin moving his way out of the. Hey, sorry,
Lloyd dropped.
got kicked out there for some reason. You hear me?
At some, yeah.
Yep, we can hear.
Okay.
At some moment, possibly when the Maester arrives, and no realizer on him, Alstan looks over to see if Jaor and Weiler are occupied, or he's been waiting for a moment when he's been conscious for Jaor and Weiler to have a moment where they're not too distracted. And when he sees his moment, he goes over to a window. He goes over and has a word with Jorah, his squire, who nips out, and then he approaches Weiler and Jaor and says, "Cousin, my lord, Blackrock, my charge, is not a rich lordship, and so my wedding gifts to you may seem poor beside the luxuries you've been offered to the others, but offered by the others. But if you'll follow me to the window one moment," and he leads them over to one of the windows looking down into the courtyard, and they look down and they see my squire coming out with he's got a small pen of sheep, there's about six sheep down there. He says, "These are you breed horses. You are famous for it. So obviously these are not your expertise, but you will know the quality of. There were very few animals in these lands that survived the 6 years winter. Most of the stock has been bought in from the south. Most of our animal populations were wiped out when we were children, and there's few that go back more than 20 years. These are of that stock. They're not the fattest. The fattest meat will not come from them, nor the best wool, but they survive the cold. This line, and if bred into your own stock, they will add a toughness to survive the winters that, well, few of the current animals have been tested against a really harsh winter. These have, and they'll have some value. Again, my apologies, I cannot offer you much, but this hopefully is a token of what I can." And then he turns to Weiler and gives her a little mechanical sort of kiss on the cheek, and then says, and Arya would love to have been here, but she's in
Yeah, she just grabs you in a hug, not mechanical, very intensely, and sort of is shaking her head, you don't need to explain.
And he looks for a moment like he's tearing up, but then again his face goes slate, and he grips her tight, and then releases her, raises a glass, and says, "To a long, healthy, and prosperous marriage." And then, feeling his duties done, he goes back and takes his seat.
JR calls after you and says, "Thank you, my lord. Generous." And there's like some sincerity there, even though he's like quite wealthy. He knows that that's a meaningful gift.
Again, he turns and gives a little bow before returning to his seat, and then goes back into his own reverie.
Okay, so Willard, you wanted to have a word with Jacaro?
After the wedding, bedding, and feast,
Okay,
and
yeah.
everything's finished up tonight.
Okay. Let's see. Yeah, it continues mostly as it has been. People singing, and it seems relatively like a normal wedding. Like, there's rowdiness, there's the same amount of sort of excitement that you would think would be normal. There's a little bit of, like we mentioned earlier, like a strange feeling in some parts, but mostly people are excited, and it seems that like Lord Riswell is quite pleased with the proceedings, and they actually look very happy together now that they're standing together, Wyla and Jor. Like their arms are linked. And there's like a train of people sort of going up one by one, and like what Alfie just did, explaining like, here's the gifts that we have given, and best of luck with everything that follows, and that kind of thing.
I imagine it's probably more proper for like lords and that to actually like personally give gifts. So, but I've probably supplied some furs and stuff to Willard as part of the gift process. Some like fine winter fox and like maybe some marten fur and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. I think like you would be right in thinking that that's mostly the responsibility, at least, of lords. Like they have to give a gift. But I think like Wyla is very well liked here, and so like certainly you and like other sort of like, I don't know how to say, like higher servants, like the smith would give her something as well, and like some of the others who like have the means to, and that would be invited, would like make the effort to like give a gift to Wyla at least.
Yeah. Well, I think with the tournament and the wardens, such as they are, the other 4 wardens, including the Otter, Alice Heather, Dafford Noble, and Jeremy's childhood friend, Ian Cooper, have all assembled. And they've probably been talking and milling about down in the lower tables. In particular, he would have marked Oren for them all to commit to memory if they hadn't done so already at the archery tournament. Mm-hmm. But from them, he'll gather some furs, some of their better cured furs, and come and lay them at the table if there's space, I guess, or maybe they're tied up actually in a roll.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll approach the wedding couple and my lady, my lord, my lord, I'm Jeremy. I'm the master of the hunt, and well, if it's proper, my lord, Wyler's are very dear to us here, and we wish you ever so well with your marriage, my lord. And we've with Willard's blessing, have got some of the finer furs for you. You know.
Have you?
And yeah, depending on I guess he looks at the table. The table's probably full of food, and he'll kind of look around and sort of scratch a bit and catch himself mid scratch and stop, and then he'll say, this one here, look, this is a winter fox, uncommon large. Look at that. Look how long that fur is. You know, well, I mean, it would look fine on Weiler, that's for sure.
Wyla is sort of smiling. He has a bemused sort of look, like he's not sure if this is like the setup to a joke. Like he doesn't really know how to react. But she thinks it's lovely, you know, and she's sort of smiling. And she's sort of getting some fun out of this situation, like finds it quite entertaining. And she says to him, "See that? I'll look good in it." And he says, "Yes, I'm sure you will. It's very nice. Thank you, Master Jeremy."
Yeah, Jeremy Snow, my lord. And I'll do a little bow. And then I'm like, is there like a pile of presents somewhere? I assume there might be.
I imagine so, yeah. There's like a table probably set aside for it.
Some sheep in the corner. No, he'll so he'll sort of take a step back. Yeah, there'll be a little bit of awkwardness as he kind of nods his head and takes his leave, and he'll put the furs with their bounty so far, and maybe on the way back to the seat, if he sees Jokoro maybe taking a break, having a drink, he'd stop and say, "Wow, that's quite a strange bird you have there. It's like a rainbow raven, it is."
It's not unlike a rainbow raven, yes.
Do they carry messages and the like too? Or maybe
No.
they just speak them when they get there?
They are companions, pets.
Wow. Can I, touch it?
Yes, I believe so. He bites sometimes, but not often.
Amazing it is. Look at these feathers. He's not from around here. I
Not
can
from
tell
around
that
here.
much.
It says. And he looks
Wow.
like at you like, "Isn't that cool?"
You didn't cast some spell on it, did you? That's not like a man's voice stuck in that bird, is it?
I have no such sorcery, no. My sorcery is mostly tricks here that I show to lords, and they are very impressed nonetheless. It is a trick. And this is a real bird. They are wild in the jungles in the summer islands.
Tricks, you say? Well, they're mighty fine tricks, they are. But and I think you sort of whenever he's talking to Jokoro, he's kind of on edge. Not knowing and still not wholly trusting him that he doesn't have some sorcerous power. But he'll try and affect a little bit more of a comfortable stance. Well, a cut with you. I'm Jeremy Snow. We met in the street. I saw your performance.
That's right. Please sit.
And he'll happily hear wondrous tales of I guess it's Summer Isles.
Yeah. Yep.
And
he's traveled all around. He would tell you that he is from there, but has spent time sort of in the east, and sort of just wandered from place to place, and has recently ended up here. He wants to see the wall, and so that's why he's heading in this direction.
You don't say. We might be going to the wall some months coming.
Really? Why?
Yeah. Well,
Someone being bad?
He'll start to laugh, and he'll remember Frederick, and probably stop laughing. And go, well, that's true, but it's a strange thing. The wall calls to criminal and honourable man alike. It's seen as a great honour and a duty to serve on the walls. Sometimes,
yet also a terrible punishment. You are strange people.
Aye. Well, if you're gonna suffer, you might as well get a taste for it, I say.
Well, I will speak. Well, maybe you could speak to your lord, and I could wait until you go. It would be safer to travel with you.
Well, from what I remember, he's keen on having a word with you about your tricks and that.
His eyes will like widen slightly, and he'll seem quite nervous very suddenly.
Well, you say they're tricks, but if you ask me, and I'll lean in, where there's smoke, there's fire. And I'll cheers his cup and move off.
Yeah, he's left sort of like a little bit shaken by that weird sort of prophetic statement. And he'll like take a drink and put it down, and then like begin looking in the direction of the table, the Lord's table, to see like if he's going to be grabbed by guards any second or something like that. He seems quite nervous.
Willard will stand, probably unnerving the man for a moment.
Yeah, he looks quickly towards the door, and wonders if he can make it out of the room before. He doesn't move or anything, but you think that's the feeling he has.
And I'll raise my cup and say, my lords, ladies, and good folk of this realm, welcome to the wedding feast of Wireless Slate and Jael Riswell. Now their oaths have been given and the maiden cloak exchanged. The tourney, the archery contest, and the joust all have concluded. Their winners write, writ on the field, as we've seen, a toast to all and to the prophet of all. And he'll raise his cup to the crowd.
Yeah, they'll raise their cups as well and cheer.
But the words have been spoken, and we all know every wedding needs a bedding. My ladies of the court, if you will, and he'll gesture to Jael.
Yeah, there's a weird moment. There are like many here who were here at the other wedding where the betting did not go well, and there's quite a few people who like remember that and the situation that led to the death of Wyrick, and the usual maybe like enthusiasm is not mustered immediately, and it takes maybe a few seconds before Lord Riswell starts to like and then people start to cheer and clap as well, but there is a moment, sort of a quiet, tense moment before that happens.
As when Riswell starts clapping and the good cheer, Alstan will take that moment to stand up and make his way close to Wyler.
Yeah, the ladies will make their way towards Jor and begin to like grab him and tug him sort of towards the stairs that lead up.
Jeremy will shadow Elfstone, knowing from long experience that this kind of slate exterior is actually a thin crust over a seething emotion. So he's going to shadow Elfstone.
In the loudness of that, Willard will turn and whisper to Morse and say, watch the red man and bring him to me after this is done. And then he'll like try and cut across the clamour to raise the attention of the court again.
Yeah, it'll die down enough when they kind of drag Jor away.
He'll nod to Barris, who'll nod in turn to the other of Willard's honour guard, who'll open the doors. enslaved men, not garbed in their livery or armed, but the best of the warriors of these past years, will march in and form up around Alston. If he will take the bride to the wedding bed, and he'll nod at the military type procession, carve in through the drunk and seated and gutful drunkard nobles and such in here towards Weiler, like an honor guard symmetry, rather than the chaos of lusty men.
There's like a weird silence that follows, and then you can hear among it, "For fuck's sake," from like one of the tables, and like a little bit of that sort of like people like unhappy with this weirdness, and like that Slate always do this. They don't respect the old traditions, but no one's going to get up and like mess with those men. Though you see that like many of them, of the dudes, are like pretty unhappy with the situation, or uncomfortable with it, or like feel those same feelings they felt before, and it just cements that reputation, I think.
I'll then invite those men, like by eye and word, to join in as the slate men under Alston and whoever else under us stands with Weiler, to take her to meet Jor.
Yeah, there's a sort of quietness, and then like you can hear the like of like various benches and chairs being pulled out, and like weird sort of quietness, until finally like Riswell, feeling the tension again, does the same thing. He like starts to clap, and like starts to sing a little bit of a song, Iron Lances, and then others will like join in like the rowdy song, and then take part in what's to follow. But with all the men in the way, no one gets their hands on Wyla, and it's much more civilized. She's not like dragged in the same way that Jor is.
Alston sort of would accept a sort of pat, but nothing beyond that. A sort of friendly sort of slap on the shoulder or whatever towards Weiler. But if anyone tries more than that, he would pretend he's drunkenly falling on the hand, but he'd just grab it and break a finger or something like that.
Yeah, I think no one tries it because of the severity of the like slate men who are not drunk and like have been out in the cold, and like you can even feel, you know, if like you're really warm and someone comes in from outside, there's like a smell and like a feeling of that coldness, and you can like they can feel that from them, and it sort of like simmers very quickly, any sort of like rowdiness that's brought on by drink and heat, and so it's no one chances their arm, most literally, in the attempt, and she's brought upstairs relatively quiet.
And then once she's been escorted to privacy, Alston will just turn and leave and go back to Arya.
Okay. Morse, you've been told to keep an eye on this this Drakoro, the magician from faraway lands. In the bedding, he does stand and leaves the hall, and so you can follow him certainly if you want to, but there's definitely a sense from him that he's a little bit worried or like nervous about what's happening.
First of all, before I say anything else, can you hear me? Because
Yes.
I didn't have my mic in. That's fine, perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Morse takes note of this red sorcerer leaving, unwitting or not, and he's been given an order, so he is going to follow. He takes a last swallow of some mead or some frothing ale that he had left in his tankard, and he's going to attempt to follow the this man, but without being immediately seen, not creeping around, but sticking to the shadows, sidling along.
Sure, yeah. He makes his way outside into the cold, and like you see that he like takes a deep breath and like looks over his shoulder back towards Willard, and then steps out into the cold. And like following him, like he's not looking behind him for people following him. He's moving quite quickly. He moves like through the yard, like past the tent, where like many of the other people like who are here are drinking, and then past the wounded tent, and then like down the sort of winding road back towards the fairground, where do you think his tent and everything is?
Yeah, at the sight of this, Morse's pace quickens. He wants to cut him off, and Morse has been within Blackmere long enough to have worked out a few shortcuts in case of emergency, I'd like to think.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, out of the shadows to this man's side, a voice comes. Suppose you're not used to the weather around these parts, are you?
I am armed, he says, like looking around, like not sure where the voice is.
Well, so am I. Do you want to compare them?
I don't want any harm or trouble. Simply going to my tent.
There's no trouble. No one said anything about trouble, did they? Only you.
Show yourself then.
Morse steps out of the shadow. He has a smile on his face, but the smile doesn't meet his eyes. He's just watching this man. What is he armed with?
He's not. It looks like.
I suppose it's been a long day for you. Plenty going on.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd want to rest.
I've been entertaining the Lord.
I did a bit of that myself. You might have noticed I was the brave champion who won the melee.
You are the eel.
That is my name, yes.
Is it money that you want?
I'm just showing concern for our Lord's guest. You see, he's not accustomed to people leaving celebrations early. After all, he wanted to meet you in private. I'm not entirely sure if this message was relayed to you, but it has been now. And so, my friend, I ask you ever so politely, come with me. Rejoin the festivities. There's plenty of drink to be had yet.
You see his eyes like dart in different directions. He's like thinking. He thinks he's being brought to be in trouble, you know? That's happened to him many times. You can see that play in his face. Like, he's like foreign enough and different enough that often he is met with like xenophobia and fear, and he does magic, you know? And so you think he's thinking about running.
And I think Morse would recognise that look on his face. He's seen many people. He's operated within low company before, so he recognises the shifty look, and he says, "Fear not, stranger. If there was trouble to be made here, it would have already happened. That I can assure you. No, my lord wants to talk to you of matters in which he would reward you, if you believe it." And Morse hopes he does.
Reward me?
Well, of course. It's not everyone who gets a private audience with Lord Slate. That's reward enough. Trust me.
All right. But if something bad happens to me, I will curse you.
Oh, certainly. I'll remember it well. What origin has this man got? Did we ever find out where roughly he's from?
He looks like a Summer Islander. He's very tall, quite heavily muscled, black skin.
I think maybe, just maybe, Morse would have encountered someone from off the shores of Westeros. Has like a rough idea, working with mercenaries and things like that. Maybe not this far north.
In White Harbour, like mercenaries.
Oh, in White
pirates.
Harbour, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a
so.
good point there. Yeah.
You'd have seen them with like the giant bows that they carry. Like a lot of them carry these enormous bows, like as tall as they are.
It's a wonder you didn't engage in the archery competition. I hear that people of your kin are very skilled.
It's usually the women. I have different talents. I'm a sorcerer.
Oh, are you indeed? Oh, very good.
I am.
Oh, yeah. I have a few tricks up my sleeve too, you know.
I don't doubt it.
As they're sort of walking, is he
Yeah.
matching my pace, or is he kind of like, am I like having to force him, or is he willingly coming?
He's
now?
going. Yeah, he's going now.
Okay. Yeah, I imagine they pass back under the threshold of the gate, perhaps on their way back in, and Morse is just keeping an eye of what's happening in the courtyard at this moment as they return. Is there anything happening at all, or is anyone going to notice us return? I'd like to try and keep this quiet.
You could like peek in, or as you pass the tent with the wounded, and you can see the new maester has like taken off most of his robes, and he has these like tattoos all up his arm, both arms, and he's like standing over one of the men and has a hand in his chest, like examining him, trying to help him. You think?
Yeah, Morse's eyes narrow with suspicion. He probably wouldn't know where this man is from, but he's a little confused what this man's intentions is. He seemed a bit dodgy upon his entrance, but he hasn't got time for this. He just presses on.
Yeah, and then past the other tent, you can hear singing and cheering and stuff from the tent where most of the soldiery is, sort of where you were last night. But other than that, like nobody notices you or like points at you or anything like that, and you can enter back into the feast hall.
Would Willard have commanded Morse to bring him to his chambers, or back into the feast? I imagine you want him apart from everyone else. Yeah, the council chambers. Morse says, "Come, friend, before we rejoin the party. Like I say, the Lord wants to speak with you in private. A great honor within the council chambers. It's this way, I think. I'm still getting used to this place."
I will follow.
Yep. They widened up the stairs, I imagine. Morse is a step behind him at this point.
Yeah. When like they entered the chambers, he'll like look around and sort of take in like various. I guess there'd be like tapestries and maybe even like a few scrolls and stuff like that, and he would like quickly like you'd think he like intelligent eyes would like pore over those maps and things like that and scrolls and kind of get a general impression of the place.
I think whilst Willard is still busy, Morse sidles up to a side table at the edge of the room, and he takes hold of a like a copper goblet, and from his side he opens a hip flask and slops some puerile-looking liquid into it, his own personal stash that he brings around with him, and he presses it into the man's hand. Don't see why we can't bring the celebrations here now, can I?
I do not imbibe alcohol.
And why is that?
I must keep my body pure from magic.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's funny. Oh, well, all the more for me. He snatches it immediately back off him and downs it, puts it back on the side table. I imagine you should make yourself comfortable. I will remain here with you until Lord Slay arrives.
Is it all right if I read?
Depends what you're going to be reading, sorcerer.
He like looks at some of the maps of, I guess it's like of the surrounding area or whatever, you know.
Yeah, you can look at those maps. Don't see any harm in it. There's no annotations or anything on it. It's not like a tactical map. It's just a general map.
Yeah, it's like a map of the, I guess like a relatively recent map, because I think there would have been efforts to like cartograph the area or whatever, you know. That's now the domain of House Slate. And so he's, you know, it's not like there's like over here we put our troops or whatever, nothing like that written on it.
Yeah, as Morse kind of panics, because at first he said, "Oh my god, yeah, you can read," and then he realizes maybe he's going to reveal some plan, but then like he almost like rolls his eyes when he remembers that a man like Willard Slate wouldn't leave anything written down. It's all in his head. So he says, "By all means, perhaps you'll be able to find a new destination for the shows that you do. Very impressive, so I hear."
I do what I can. It's, most of it is tricks.
Most of it.
Yes.
And the other bit.
He smiles. Magic.
And where does this power come from, then?
You would not understand.
Oh. Well, why don't you try me?
I could no more explain to you the intricacies of this magic in the same way that you could not explain to me the intricacies of your combat magic. It is a lifetime's worth of learning.
Well then, my friend, I must apologize if your learning is beyond me. How about we just remain here in silence until my lord comes, eh? I'll let you read.
Yes, he says somewhat nervously.
Morse sort of sidles to the door, and he deliberately drags a wooden chair with him. Puts it next to the door, puts his hand just on the hilt of his sword, not threateningly, just like you do to move the sword out of the way when you sit down, and sinks into the chair, and then pours another glass.
Yeah, he like sits at the council table, and he's kind of like looking at some of the maps and trying not to look at you. So I guess like all the lords and ladies and stuff are upstairs, and the bedding happens in the way that it does. And everyone agrees that it's complete and make their way back downstairs to continue drinking while the couple can spend some time together.
Yeah, at a moment, like ordained, the servants will stop serving even unwatered wine and ale and food. And when I start to notice the first like disgruntled responses to that, I'll stand and invoke the attention of the lords and ladies still gathered and say, the hour is late and we all have our duties to our people and realms. Let us retire in good health and spirit now. And then I'd thank them for their attendance and then stand thereafter in that way, which kind of forces a response.
Yeah, initially there's a little bit of grumbling, but then there's like a like polite round of applause and like thank yous from various lords and such.
Personally, to help old Lord Riswell to his chambers.
Yeah, he's helped he's got people as well, and you can help with that.
And then, yeah, afterwards I'd go up to the council chambers and summon whoever would be willing to come. I think, like, I don't know, I would go to Alston, and I don't think there's words to say to him at this moment, but that he should go to be with his lady and rest if he hasn't already.
Yeah.
But then I'd still go to my duty into the council chambers.
Yeah, Morse rises as you enter, and he doesn't say anything. He just gives a nod to you, and then to the red sorcerer. But he doesn't look like he's going to move unless you tell him. He doesn't particularly like the idea of leaving you in a room with this stranger.
Willard would just walk in, give you a curt smile, and then take a seat nearby you, opposite the Red Priest.
Yeah, he'll stand as you enter and like bow. My lord.
Please be seated, Ben.
Morse moves directly in front of the door.
Would either of Lawrence or Jeremy have come, or would they have retired to their quarters?
If you would have made any sort of nod that you wanted whoever would go, then Lawrence would definitely find some good excuse to excuse himself and to head along.
Unless you specifically requested Jeremy, he's probably following Elfstone.
Yeah, so I'll probably come in with Sir Larence, or Lord Larence, I should say, and so we sit at the council chamber table. My thanks, Jokoro. He says, trying his best to say it in the way that Jokoro introduced himself some days back at the Tawny Fair. For your time, and he'll slide a small purse of silvers across to him.
Very generous, Lord. Thank you.
You brought much mirth to a court that sorely needed it, and my own lady, as many others, were fond of your magic.
Yes, Lord. So it seemed.
I am more interested in the smoke you made at the Tawny Fair. What components are needed to make such a thing? I would pay you for that information to better your travels wherever you might go from here. And he'll gesture to the map that's probably a bit finer now than we found it 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm. The Smoke Lord?
Yes.
What do you mean?
He made great clouds of grey smoke, seemingly from nothing.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I thought about its application on the battlefield, which is why I want the martial boards here.
Okay.
So you could get that and replicate that to screen our forces. That's my intent. That's of this encounter.
It is hard to find. It is a kind of stone ground down into a powder, and then lit in it creates a great amount of smoke.
And how much do you have left after what you used at the fair some days back?
He looks at the pouch of silver, and perhaps 3 pouches this size.
You speak the common tongue well. Could you dictate the recipe?
Yes, I could, but the stone itself is from far. In the east, it is expensive.
If you travel far, as you have done from there, if you've traveled far from where you've come, then you must find it somewhere, unless you've brought a large amount and use it everywhere that you go. How do you continue to get it?
I last purchased some in King's Landing. I am running low, admittedly. And my plan was to go to the wall and then back down to White Harbour and then onto Essos. I can give you what I have.
Does that seem...
It is expensive, my lord. And the stone is from islands in near my home. The stone itself is a slick black stone.
You can describe it and its many tongues, and we will write that down and pay you an agreed price for that recipe and your remaining stores of smoke powder.
Yes.
Then what do you propose? How shall I reward you?
I speak many languages, but everyone speaks the language of coin. No matter where I go, they understand that tongue.
Then how much coin and how much time?
I can speak with your, he looks for the word maester. I explain to him where I find it and where I how it is made, how it is ground. And there is a process. There are several things that must go into it. The stone itself is expensive, but when made into a powder, less so, it is complicated. And he thinks he's like he's not trying to be rude to you. It's just like it is like chemistry, sort of, or alchemy or something, you know. He thinks you won't understand.
I'll nod, smile, and thank the man for his information, and say I can have my Maester Timos and my good lady wife write down your recipe in the morning, if you will.
Yes, Lord. Your man, the hunter, spoke with me. He said maybe there were plans to go to the wall.
Indeed. We intend to travel there before next winter. We have family there.
My intention to go there as well. I've never seen it. It is one of the wonders of the world. Perhaps I could
You
join
need only head north to find it, sir.
It would be safer if I went with you.
That might mean you waiting here, stayed from your prior journey, some untold months.
That's true. But north of here there is little. My plan was to stop by Winterfell and then go to, he like drums on the table, Umbers, and then to the wall, but I think the further north I go, the less welcome I have felt. Apart from here.
You'll find no welcome at last, Hearth. If you brandish your faith so, there would not guarantee your safety as I would in this realm.
My faith, Lord?
Your red god, the god of fire.
Yes. He is my god. I do not brandish it so. I am no priest nor acolyte of his. Simply a follower. My magic is not from him. It is chemistry. Science.
How much shall I pay you for this science?
For the stone, there are 3 pouches. 3 pouches.
And the recipe?
If you'll let me stay here until you go to the wall and I go with you, I will consider that payment enough.
Stay with me in my hall.
Somewhere here. Doesn't need to be in your hall, my lord. Just somewhere that I can stay. Without paying for it.
Perhaps. Why came you here at Winter's End to this far-flung place of the north if your intent was to head to the wall? The road to Winterfell is the king's one, and better guarded than these brigand hills.
There was much to see. I wanted to see the end of the world, and this is it. There's nothing beyond here, from the shore. I've traveled far to see many things, and this is one of them. It's not quite so grand as I imagined. One sea looks much like the other.
I cannot agree to this. There must be some other way in price of coin, as you said, which speaks in many tongues, than compared to my hospitality.
I cannot stay?
No, your recipe take untold months to dictate. I would think a day would be enough, or 2, in conversing with a knight of the mind.
Yes, the recipe is not so complicated. I simply wish to remain so I could travel with you. It would be safer, but I understand. There are many who do not like my presence. I've faced it everywhere I've gone in this land.
And already there are people here charged with their faith, and we have had conflict in the past. I would not wish to burden you with it, since you've brought such mirth to my court. would not subject you to it by giving you my kind hospitality.
I have no issues with other people's faiths if they have no issue with mine. I do not crow about it everywhere that I go, unlike those who follow the Seven. I'm no...
He thinks of the man's parrot and his mannerisms and thinks that maybe he's unaware of how he might be received further north from here.
Yeah, he has no idea. Very well then.
So, a pouch for the recipe as well?
Yes, I accept.
400 silver pieces then.
That's a deal.
And you will have my hospitality here this night and the next, comfort of my hall, and the attention of my lady wife and maester.
If it please you, Lord, I might have a suggestion.
Speak.
If our friend here wishes to remain, but cannot be within the halls, well, I'm sure there are lodgings that could be found within Warrendon, north of here. It is far more subtle a place.
Would that be amiable to you, Jokoro?
It is a different castle?
No castle, but a town, a port, closer to the coast, like your own people.
Ah. Are there ships that go to the wall?
Yes, if you have the coin, which now you do,
That is amenable.
then you would not need to stay over long for our safety. If you wish to expedite your trip, you could go directly to the Shadow Tower now that spring has come.
I shall think on it, but that is more than acceptable.
You could even throw your cap down and perform your tricks in the streets.
He looks at you sort of funny. Is there something wrong with making a living?
No, more than the baker or the miller, he'll say to Ross, and then back to the man. You can practice your skill there as long as it is within my laws and the law of the Starks, which you as a traveller who has made it this far must know well. Yes?
Yes.
Good. Then before you go to Warrington, present yourself in the morning to Tinos and Lady Tira. They will take your dictation. You will take my coin, and I will take these. I'll take the powder purchase.
Agreed.
We escort our guest, Morse.
Morse takes another look at this this man and then gives a nod to Willard. Makes very brief eye contact with Lawrence and then opens the door and holds it for the stranger.
Before you go, Jokoro,
Yes?
what trouble or concern or worry have you with my good man Alston?
It's a delicate thing.
I saw as much. He troubles you.
I can speak before these men?
He'll look to Lawrence and to Morse in turn to see what they do and say.
Morse closes the door.
I'm at the discretion of my lord. If your information is for my ears, then it will not leave me unless he commands it.
Then of course you can speak, sir.
During the tournament, he found me in a rage. He threatened me, said I have to do magic to save a friend of his who had been grievous injured. I have no magic. I'm not really a sorcerer. It is parlor tricks, as I have explained. I said that to him. He would not believe me. And so he made me pray to the Red God that he would save this man. I warned him there was a cost. There always is. I believe that cost has been paid somehow. He seems quietly furious. I believe that fury is directed at me.
It'll be like the inklings, the beginnings of a pit in Larence's stomach, I imagine, at the sound of the tail. He'll look to Jacoro. Did he tell you this friend's name?
It was Lawrence.
I imagine Larence's face will tell a better story than any words that he could say.
Jacoro, like, begins to piece it together. It was you.
Yes, I am Larence.
And you live.
I do.
A miracle.
That's what the Maester called it too. You-
He like looks up to the sky and like puts his hands in the air and like begins speaking a different language, like up at the sky. And then like recovers himself and like will go to a torch nearby and like run his hand through the fire and kiss it. A miracle.
Larence will like sit back down in the chair, like fall into it. Like he doesn't really know how to process this at all. And he'll kind of like try to take a moment to wrap his brain around what's happening.
He like sort of forgets the situation. He'll like walk over to you and like kneel in front of you and like take your hand. You are chosen, saved by him. There must be great purpose in your life. There must be something great awaiting you. You have been chosen, brought back from the brink. A miracle.
Larence will just like shake his head in confusion at this like sudden like bombardment from this like strange man. I don't understand. Don't understand anything you're saying right now.
The Red God.
Who?
R'hllor. The Lord of Light. He is mighty. He can do everything, anything. And he has chosen to save you. He listened to me. I prayed fervently. I wanted you to live. And I begged him for it. And you do.
I don't know that I believe you, but the Maester said that there's no way I should have lived, and if you'd seen the blood in the room, I'm sure you would have agreed with him.
There's nothing beyond the Red God's power. If he wanted to save you, he could do it no matter how badly injured you were.
Since I've woken up that day, I've felt strange, empty, almost distant.
Cold.
If I'm chosen, if this is a miracle, then why?
You feel cold.
Yes.
You need the fire.
We all pissing need the fire for that.
This is not a normal kind of cold, no regular chill. This is a cold of the soul. And the only way to warm that is through the fire of R'hllor. You were chosen by him, raised by him. It's only through him that you will feel joy and warmth again.
Larence is like clearly intrigued in some way. Like there's been a lot that he can't explain. But he'll like in this moment of curiosity, I think it'll be on his face especially. Willard would be able to see with his insane perception that like Larence wants to ask this person more about this, this, but he'll like glance up to the other two, like, am I gonna look weird for doing that?
No, I think go. I'm just as curious, though I'm glad that the door's shut.
Morse just has the same look on his face that he had when this discussion began. Just suspicion and rather suspicion that this talk is even being humoured, but he doesn't say anything. He just looks at you.
I woke up with more blood around me, my own blood, than I've seen in most battlefields. Wound gone. Apparently, I'd been told was quite severe moments before. You're saying this is the work of your red god, and that this feeling that I feel can be changed by him. Tell me more.
I'm no priest to speak eloquently on the subject. I don't know how to preach it to you. What is clear is that everything is opposites. Everything has its opposite. And the night is dark, full of terrors. The day is bright and beautiful and full of hope. These are truths. You'll have to find a priest. I don't know where you would find one here. King's Landing?
Do you know one?
I know many, but not here. It's not... This part of the world is not so aware of his teachings.
If I wanted to, and I'm not sure that I do, where would I find one?
The second you cross the narrow sea, you will find them in every city, everywhere that you wish. I am certain that you could find some in King's Landing, perhaps Dorne, some of the bigger ports maybe, White Harbor, I don't know. This is the dark and cold and uncivilized West to us. Not many come here.
You say this thing was done at a cost. You say that what happened with Alston was connected to... I'm just gonna like look down at himself.
It's the way that the world is made. Always there are opposites. Life requires death. I told this to Elson. I told him many times that there would be a cost. He insisted. I don't know. And then he like starts to realize that like if you are here, something has to have died. What happened?
Lawrence will look over to Willard. It's not his own discretion to say if that information is for this man's ears or not.
A child was lost in the birthing bed.
I'm sorry.
What coercion led you to blood magic in my land?
It's not blood magic, my lord. I simply prayed.
Did he threaten you?
Yes?
Pay you?
I can't remember. I don't think there was coin, was there? There was maybe offer of coin.
I think it was more like, I'm offering to not kill you.
Yeah, yeah.
He said not to pay him, but Alston gave him 3 silver
Oh, that's
stacks.
right. Yeah. He insisted, my lord, that I take some. did not want this.
Lawrence, does this purveyor of tricks shake your faith of the Seven? Do you believe his, what Nista would call, heretical speech?
I'm not sure that I do. But yet you saw the same face on Maester Timos that I did. If he says that what happened is not possible, and this man says that it was because of what he did, I won't say that I believe him, but can't say the question isn't in my mind. What it might mean, why, how. If not this, then how? We found no other explanation, though perhaps there is one. I'm not sure. And it's like clear, like Lawrence is kind of not like entirely shaken, but definitely very kind of rattled at this sort of like sudden revelation. Like part of him doesn't want to believe it because of his faith. The other part like can't find anything else to like latch onto in like this extreme confusion. And it'll probably be some time before he can definitively say whether or not he believes it or not.
One thing is clear is that Alston should never know. His folk are superstitious. He will take this too hard to bear, I fear.
And Lawrence will forget any sort of manners for a moment and just look at the sorcerer and say, "And he would murder you if he knew." I agree.
It was not my doing. I have no power.
He came to you, he said, "Do this thing." You said there will be a cost, and the thing happened and there was a cost. How can you blame him for thinking that it was anything other than you?
If I had the power to raise the dead, would I be wandering from town to town begging for scraps?
If you want to try to explain that to him, you're more than welcome to try. I don't think it'll be successful.
Then I should go sooner.
I think you're right. And Lawrence will kind of like look to Willard of like, unless you want to keep him here now, he probably should leave.
Jacoro, could I trust you to keep this matter silent for the rest of your life?
It's a miracle, my lord. It's a confirmation of my faith, though I did not need it. Somehow, this has happened.
If how, then why not those who sang Sister Nesta's song or gave their silent offerings to the heart tree and forewent the festivities?
Would they, those gods, make the same cost? Would they take that price? That's not how the Seven are. I have been told they are merciful and kind.
No,
Rolliver makes no such claim.
it is the old gods. It is the heart trees that know the blood's power. He'll think back to his conversation with Riswell.
Perhaps that is so, but I feel it in my heart. It was the Lord of Light. And I think you feel it in your heart too. You're afraid by it. That's understandable. I will not speak of it in Westeros. If I make it home, I will speak to a priest about it. This is a very important moment for me.
I'll turn to Lawrence and whisper, even though the man could probably hear bits and pieces of it, this man's fate rests in your hands.
Yeah, Lawrence will just kind of like look and whisper back. If he goes and speaks in Essos, what are the chances it comes back here? If whispers of me coming back from some dark power are abound, it could be bad not just for my reputation, but for any who I'm with. If the words will not cross the sea, I see no reason why we shouldn't let this man go. If they will. Just kind of like let that hang, obviously.
Then Jacaro, I propose that you give the recipe this very evening of Timos roused, and you can divulge what you know and be on your way to Warrington by ship tomorrow with the coin you now have, and your life and your miracle. Make sure you preach it elsewhere.
I will, Lord.
Swear it on your fire god.
I swear it.
Speak never of this. I'll have Timos summoned and chambers suitably prepared. Disagreeable.
Yes, Lord.
Then he'll nod, having not touched the port drink. Morse, if you will, take him to appropriate chambers and summon Timos to his toil. Forgive him for me.
My lord. And Morse opens the door and holds it for Jacaro.
Yeah, he goes.
With one last look at Lawrence, Morse sweeps from the room and closes the door.
Willard will just turn to Lawrence, a look he's never given him before.
Yeah, Lawrence is just kind of like staring out in his mind in no particular direction, and then he'll like notice after the fact that he's been like staring at the like flickering light of the torch subconsciously, and just kind of like shake his mind from it and his gaze from it. I don't know what to make of any of that. Surely it's just some trick, a coincidence that he's claiming credit for, right? He'll say, like, completely uncertainly.
I think it more likely that Timos is wrong than that this man has manifested magic here in these old lands. But he spoke with conviction.
Most
And
men
Alston.
of faith do.
And we could not confirm Alston's part in this without giving away we know more. And if ever he were to know that he has given his child to the flame, that you should live, it may be too great a wound to heal.
I agree. If he could not bear it himself, he would either lash out at himself, at me, hunt this man down. I don't know what he'd do. He's impossible to predict, but I don't think it would be good.
He has grief enough to bear now and more for it to come, as do we all. Let us not heap it for him. I won't ask for your oath on this.
You'll have it anyways. I won't say a word to Alston about anything that I've heard just now.
You have coin enough now and more for your domain and for your future and for House Martin here. The son of 3 men in the lists and the winner's purse means your wealth is measured in silver now as well as honor. You have coin enough too to travel across the seas before winter if you'd wish. But for now, this matter must conclude.
There will be time for questions later, and perhaps I'll ask them when there is. For now, there's still much to be done.
Although you do not seem it, and you appear bright, I must rest. I must be loath to admit. Is there something I can do for you, my lord?
You've been gracious enough with much that you've given now and in the past. Please, I'll take my leave. You may have your rest. And he'll stand up, bow lightly. Probably linger after he stands from the bow for just a little bit longer than he normally would. Kind of lost again in thought. But then he'll just nod his head quickly again as he realizes and close the door behind him.
Willard will smile in thanks to the man he's come to confide in, and he's leaving, and when the door closes, he'll go over to the window and shutter it and look out towards the moon-flecked mere and know that he cannot go to rest and that he should go to what he's avoided, and that is to consoling his cousin at this painful moment, now heavy with the secret he intends to bear to hold from him for the rest of his life.
As you look out towards the mere, just on the sort of cliffs above the mere, you see the dying embers of a funeral pyre.
Yeah, I would head to that with less relish than I would have battle. But go I will, even though the moon's probably high by now.
Ever since the betting ceremony or the betting parade, such as it was, Jeremy's been watching Elfstone, and perhaps if he can get him somewhere away from the crowds, in the middle of a reverie, I imagine his hands clenched.
The moment the bedding he delivered Weiler up to her chambers, he left the party and stalked out. So that would be your one chance of catching him. Otherwise, he'd be in his own room.
Yeah, I think some way out past the doors into the cold night. I imagine you've got quite a pace, quite a stride on. He'd call out, "Ulfstein!"
He looks around with ferocity in his eyes, and then he sees it's you, and the ferocity goes, and when he's ferocious, his eyes shine blue, and he looks angry and huge. But then he sort of looks, when the ferocity goes, he looks much smaller than you've ever seen him before.
Yeah, I think to start with, it's almost like that first time he approached old One Eye with kind of gentle tread, hands out, and then as he sees the fire of Elfstone diminish somewhat, as if as if some great weight reasserts itself on him, he'll step forward and put his hand on his shoulder and look up into Elfston's face, and ever so slightly his head just goes to the side, not unlike his hound does sometimes, with just that sort of mute questioning, and his eyes shining a bit in the darkness, mute sympathy.
Maybe Alfstan registers this, maybe he doesn't. It's very difficult to see any reaction from him, but he mechanically kind of gives you a mechanically he holds you tight for a moment and then releases you and pauses a moment to see if you have anything else to say. I would be with my wife, he says.
Yeah, I think Jeremy feels that. Like the silence or the heaviness around the tree, which isn't so much a compulsion to silence as any word you utter is given such gravity that it almost forces most people to silence.
The tree
So
like
I think
watches with absolutely no sympathy or empathy or any sense of that anything is wrong. It has the same dour face as always. There's no change in it, even when I think you desperately want it.
Yeah, I think he just looks up into Elfston's face, his eyes shining and feeling like the pain, and also that sort of something that on the stony shore they're used to. Like he knows you can't just like you must abide and go through the suffering as best you're able, but it's not. You almost have to feel the pain rather than just suppress it. So I think as Elfston moves away, yeah, he just feels that stab in his chest, and he doesn't know how to help his friend other than to maybe give expression to those feelings that Elfston is keeping locked under his slate demeanor. And you'll watch him crunch away over the frost towards his wife.
And that's what he does.
Willard, were you going towards them?
I would have gone to that fire, or that smouldering fire, and since Jeremy went to go see Elston a fair while ago, at least by my reckoning, there's probably I would have missed all of this, and maybe they've already departed.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd like to say my silent prayers by the pyre and the tree,
Okay.
reflect.
Okay, cool. Let's take a quick break there and come back in a few minutes. So the through the night, Timos would have spoken with Jacaro. And in the morning, would like bring to you the information that he's gained and has like not only like the name of the stone, but like the process and the temperatures and all the rest that's like necessary for it to work. And so he's good in his word. And are you intending to pay him and let him go?
Yeah, I'll pay him and have Morse escort him to Warrington.
And by escort him, do you mean murder him on the road or escort him?
I don't mean to murder him on the road.
Kill him?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, well, he'll fight back. So, and he's pretty capable in some ways. So we'll go through that.
Cool. Yeah, I'd said to Rob, like, take him to Warrington, meet up with Osric, kill him and dump him in the harbour. So whatever you want to make of that.
Okay.
I mean, there's a cove northeast of us that would do quite nicely.
Yeah, I mean, he's not going to be able to defeat you and Osric, you know? So I don't know that it's worth going through it. But he will curse you, Morse, with, like, significant conviction. And I think enough conviction to even make the cynical Morse think there might be something to it. You know, he'll, like, in his last moments, like, he'll bite between his thumb and his forefinger and, like, spit the blood at you and, like, invoke something in a weird language and, like, curse you. Like, point, like, his pinky finger and his forefinger at you, like, in the shape of a horn and, like, all this sort of stuff. Like, go through this process before he's, like, gutted and thrown into the water.
I think Morse, in response to that, would say something along the lines of, "Tell your fire god that Slate sent you."
Yeah, his like lifeless eyes will look up from the water once or twice before as the waves hit, and then he'll vanish into the dark.
Morse will spit into the waves, allowing them to like wash the blood from his hands, and he'll dwell on what this conjurer of cheap tricks just uttered to him.
In the days that follow, like everyone will start to leave the wedding feast, including Wyla, who will go now to live in, I don't know what the Riswell's castle is called, in the Rills.
The Rills.
Yeah. Yep. And she seems pretty pleased with that, and there's like much fanfare as she leaves, and then as the other lords sort of begin to filter out over the next while, Una Grover makes promises that she will send missives and things like that so that she can discuss with you, Lawrence, the proposal of marriage. And then, yeah, beyond that, everyone starts to like filter away until finally it's like quiet again in Blackmere, and there's space, and the tents are taken down over the next like few days, and the fairground sort of turns back into just a field. And the wood from the tourney building is taken to see to other construction projects and things like that. And so very quickly, in the space of a few days, it turns back into normal. Same old Blackmere. But somewhere in that time, the Maester would be keen to speak with you, Willard, because he was sort of still unclear about like if this is the castle he's supposed to be in, because he's meant to go to Belfry.
Yeah, I'd gladly meet with him. I want to speak to him thoroughly after all said and done.
Yeah. Do you want the rest of them there with you, like in a council? Or?
Yeah, any who'd be interested for sure. Maybe Morse isn't back by then yet, but if he is, him too.
Mm-hmm.
But I imagine Alston would be with Aria. Like I wouldn't summon him
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, sorry, the Holtz would have stayed as well. But beyond that, all the other lords and ladies would have left. As well as like those who would have come to the wedding, like small folk and stuff like that. Yeah, so you can meet then, I guess, in the council chambers or outside or somewhere like that, whatever is to your liking, with this man. And he'll incline his head to you. It's good that we can speak, my lord.
Yes, apologies that you've been made to wait, Maester. I've been busied. I trust you've found your temporary quarters to your liking.
Luxury compared to the Citadel, my lord.
Tell me, Dagon, straight, is it to the Citadel that you are bound, and to your oath?
Of course.
Men in these lands by your name and look will know that you are a man of the Iron Islands.
I'm a man of the Citadel. I have not been a man of the Iron Islands since I was a boy. I've not been there since I was a boy. This is maybe the closest I've been.
How came you to be consigned to serve House Volon?
The processes of who goes where and who goes to what house. A complicated thing. I was chosen because I am from these lands, ostensibly, a long time ago. And there is talk in the Citadel that this constant raiding in this part of the world is a problem, should be dealt with, and they thought perhaps I, with my great weight of experience, could help in some way. But I have not been to the Iron Islands in a long time, my lord.
I believe him.
Yeah, he hasn't been to the Iron Islands in a long time. That's definitely, you think, true.
And you will be comfortable with aiding our houses in fending off the Iron Islanders?
I'm sworn to serve the house that I am bound to, and I will do so. I understand that might be difficult for you to understand, my lord, but I have not been an Iron Islander for some time. I've spent more time in the east than the west.
And at the Citadel, do you have to relinquish your faith?
Relinquish it? No.
Do you serve the Drowned God?
I don't serve any god, my lord.
Now you serve Lady Tira.
As you say.
I'll organise for you to meet with Maester Timos, and we'll see you somewhat stocked and taken to Belfry, to the rookery there, and establish you in the halls of my wife's father.
The record seems to suggest that Belfry has a very poor rookery, my lord. Is that so?
Indeed, it is no more really than a library now, kept by my own wife after the previous maester died some time back.
That is unfortunate. I have a particular bird with me that needs extra care.
Indeed, what sort of bird?
A raven, my lord. Rare large, white colours.
For winter?
Nay, just a special bird. Very intelligent. It's my familiar, you might say. He sort of smiles at that and then thinks maybe that was a bad joke to make. A pet.
Then you will have an account arranged from our coffers to see you suitably arranged into the rookery at Belfry.
Well, I'd be glad of it, my lord.
Our houses are joined and are fated in union, so you may come to serve House Slate as House Volon, as I'm sure you've come to understood by the paperwork I had sent to you yesterday.
Yes, you're one house, really, and so my assumption is I serve you.
Us.
Yes. As you say.
Then you are welcome to come and we'll speak further with Tyrion. We don't have to play it out, but I'll have them introduced and have her kind of, be responsible for him and to a degree, like of autonomy with him to see what she'll make come of it and set aside 100 silvers for now to see him set up in Belfry.
Yeah, his chain is long. It's much longer than Timos's. He's got like a lot of links on there. He seems to have, like, he's an older man as well. He's been through a lot of study, it seems. Like Timos is new, you know, like this is his first posting. Basically right out of college, sort of, if you will, you know. And this guy's done a lot of studying and traveling and things like that.
Yeah, I'll mark those links well. I'd like to go to Belfry for a time there at some point in the future and speak along with him once he's properly established and set up and up to speed.
Okay.
But is there any objections from the rest of the council about him or any lines of inquiry? I'm pretty satisfied, but I'm keen to hear what you think.
You do notice as you walk with him, people are sort of drawn to him. Like, he's got a sort of confidence. He stands very tall, and he has like quite piercing eyes, I guess you would say. And he has a sort of affable way about him, which is unusual for a maester, you think. Like, a lot of the ones that you've met with and spoken with tend to be quite bookish and quiet and not so confident. But this man has the look of like he's done a lot of traveling and has done a lot of living.
Do we know which house of the Iron Islands he's come from?
Nope. He wouldn't.
I think that's
ask him.
Yeah, I think that's what Morse would say. Actually, he hasn't long been there. He would have given a nod to his lord upon his return, rejoining the council. He's heard the last bit of this conversation, looks to this maester and says, "From what house of the Iron Islands are you from?"
I'm from the House of the Citadel. I'm not from a House of the Iron Islands. What difference?
Before then, my good night means.
What difference does it make?
If it makes no difference, then you won't have any problem spilling it, maester, if your pardon my saying so.
I find this line of questioning rather uncomfortable, given the inherent dislike for the Ironborn that exists here. I think it's rather uncomfortable, actually. I'm from the Citadel. I'm here to serve you.
Please forgive me. I was merely curious.
And you can remain so.
Morse bites his tongue.
If you order me to say, my lord, I will do so, but to me it seems irrelevant what house I have come from, what houses I have been to, what countries I have travelled to.
If that is the case, then I will not ask it. Perhaps in time you may come to share it.
Yes. When we know each other a little better, perhaps, and we are more comfortable.
As you say, forgive us our line of inquiry. Our peoples have old enmity that still runs red.
So it would seem.
I mean, I don't think we mean anything bad by it, Maester. It's just where someone's come from often gives them knowledge, you know? So
I have
you
spent
might know.
more years away from the Iron Islands than I ever spent there.
Well,
I've spent
well,
more
you
years in
are.
Essos than I have in Westeros. It is irrelevant.
Well, that might be true, and I'm sure you mean well, but I can tell you the Ironborn ain't what you call relevant to us. I mean, unless they are relevant. I'm not quite sure.
You mean they are relevant to you? Yes, I understand. Don't hurt yourself, man.
You hear some yelling out in the yard as as Alstan arrives, sort of gallops up and shouts at his horse to be stabled and rubbed down because it's cold and wet. And then you hear him running up the stairs, and the doors open, and he's there, all taking off his waterlogged cloak. Oh, sorry, my lord. I was told about the council, but it slipped my mind.
Were it not, my lord, join us. We're speaking with Maester Dagon of his charge and of our plans.
And Alstan goes to the fire and starts stripping off and stripping off and just laying out his clothes to dry as he's sort of grabs a drink, and he's trying to listen in to see what's happening in the council.
So I think Alpha thankfully might have missed that little bit of rudeness towards Jeremy right at the end there, but yeah.
As such, Maester, you'll be part of this council and treat each member of it with their due rank.
As you say, my
Once you've established your holding, I've set you to detailing what you know of the Iron Islands, those houses closest to ours who might have enmity, and House of Olmark, whom we have heard word may possess our ancestral sword. Other than these line of inquiries, we'll speak further on more matters at a later date when myself and Tira, and he'll gesture to her at the council, will join you at Belfry.
Very good. He's like taking notes as you speak.
I hate that I like him.
Taking notes as you speak of he writes down full mark and a couple of other things that you'd mentioned. Did you mean to dismiss him, or that he should stay at the council?
No, once the council's dismissed, that he should go to it. But unless I got the sense from any of my close companions that they would rather, at this point, that he were not here, in which case, like reading that, I would dismiss him to that immediately.
Do you only have book knowledge, or do you know anything of building ships? Says Alstan to this Maester.
I can build walls and towers and buildings. Ships is not my speciality, though I'm sure I could figure it out with enough time. I've spent a lot of time on them. I can sail very well. And it's not what you think, he
It's
says
good to know.
before somebody else speaks. Not in long ships, not with Ironborn.
I've recently come into some of my own land. We have need of walls to be built there. Your expertise would be well received.
Well, I'll be happy to help. You won't have your own maester. I'm to be maester for 3 lords.
I would wish that those lands there be fortified in defence, and Tira is in agreement with this, who is as your liege.
He sort of frowns in confusion at the situation, because really Lawrence should have his own maester and take care of his own lands, and so should Alfie, you know?
Yeah, knowing that now, I'll put that on the to-do list. Actually, perhaps I could put it on his to-do list. I'll say you were right, good maester. Something overlooked in the past busyness that could be rectified now that spring has come and passage from the citadel is swifter. Could you arrange this once you've been established if Timos were to bring you ravens?
Oh, I'm sure we can all benefit from some Andal wisdom and book learning, but it's low on the priorities of Blackrock. Don't worry about us, we'll be fine.
As is your wish, my lord, Lord Lawrence.
House Martin would be glad to have a maester who'd be able to assist us if this one is busy with other matters.
Being maester to a house is a full-time occupation, and a difficult one at that. I'm sure that Maester Timos can attest to that. To be maester for 3 houses, I can't imagine how my young colleague here has managed it so long.
He has borne much, and for that we are ever thankful to Maester Timos, who is testament to your order and to the Citadel.
Alston
But you are
snorts.
right, there should be a Maester to each house, and we shall work towards that. Sorry, go for healthy.
What were you going to say, Caius?
Alston derisively snorts at this suggestion that every house needs a maester, but then becomes again slatish.
He grins, Dagon, at your anger at the idea of having an educated man in your house, but he sort of keeps it to himself. And he'll scribble down as well, Maester for House Martins, and None for the Men of Blackrock.
Morse catches himself looking around the room, thinking, "Can you believe this shit? That they're allowing this kraken into the closest council?" And he doesn't give voice to that. There's a certain hierarchy to this council, and he has to wait for his time to speak.
Jeremy's a bit red-faced, and he's picking at a splinter on the table.
If there are no other matters for our maesters, my lords, there you have it, honoured sirs. And he'll stand in dismissal of Timos and Dagon.
Yeah, they'll rise and bow and start to leave. Timos sort of looks lost towards you, Alfie, and it's probably the first time that you've seen him, and he's seen you since, and he clearly wants to say something but can't bring himself to say anything, and so leaves.
Yeah, and he just spits derisively into the fire.
Our Meister Timos, I've got a present for you. I'll come and see you after the council if I can.
Of course, yes. And they'll leave.
Oh Lord, Maester Timos did all he could, he'll say to Alston now that the council's smaller and more intimate.
Well, he did manage to save Sir Lawrence, it seems, says Alston, looking. The first time he sort of realised Sir Alston was alive, he was stunned, but he's kind of got to grips with that now. But he's still a little bit. Well, his mind is elsewhere, and most of the time, and he's although he's taken up his duties of training the men again, he's not really. His mind wanders at the moment, and he's not 100% with it.
Maybe he won't push it further then for now. Wait till he's more clear-headed, just give him space, and then say to the council, what should be our move now into summer, my lords? He'll try and snap Jeremy away from the splinter picking.
Well, my lord, we still have a lot of furs and the like that we can sell. If we're not going sailing off or traveling overland to any of the bigger towns, I was thinking we could sell some at Whitehill. I think there's markets there, my lord. And with their southern tastes and that, they like their fancy furs.
I like it well and intend to visit Lady Kayla. So I'll agree to this. We could take all that we do not need for our own requirements, surplus, to sell there to see what we may gain. We might use the money come fairer times to go to White Harbour and gain more of this black stone.
Is that your first mention of the Blackstone to most of us?
It would be to Alston and Jeremy.
Blackstone? I'll say, and I'll look at Lawrence. Elfston, because you're Black Rock, aren't you?
Yeah.
I think he'd be confused.
I think Elston is as well.
Powdered smoke for the soldiers to screen their movements. For instance, like at Foxton, we'd have been able to press them harder if we'd screened ourselves from their palisades. Set Maester Timos to it, and soon Master Dagon as well. The wardens will set to using it for its purpose.
I meant to say, I don't know if this is the place, but strength to your hands, Sarah Lawrence. It's so good to see you so well recovered. I have to say, we all prayed for you, my lord, and even Lady Shivers, she got the scepter to lead everyone in prayers for the seven. I thought you might like to know. She's a pious lady, that one.
Yes, thank you for your well wishes. It's an honor to know that I was so prayed for, as the recovery has been remarkable, even.
My lord, I am aware that I am a more humble voice of this honoured council, but I must ask, what is your intention in inviting this Kraken into your council?
The same as it was for the Sevener, whom my father admitted here, Master Timos.
I need not remind anyone here, Lord, of the treachery of the Ironborn. We saw that as the stones turned red.
I wear it as much as I wear southern treachery, or treachery done by northerners or our own house in the past.
Sir Eel, these lands were once ruled by the Ironborn, and some of us even have the blood of the Ironborn from when Harag Hor was king here.
Your concern, though, is valid, and I thank you for voicing it, and you are no humble voice upon this council, let me assure you, sir. And I would pose to you all, what are your thoughts upon the man? For I trusted the man despite his impertinence and courage, and I do not say that lightly, as I'm sure you know well.
His demeanor is a bit prickly. He is quick to snap, to speak ill, to argue with others. But I see no reason to distrust his loyalty yet, even if I would prefer someone more agreeable.
Can't be easy being Ironborn in the north, I guess.
His refusal to speak of his past is concerning, though. If he is a maester, his knowledge is his greatest asset to us. And if he is unwilling to speak of this, he might be unwilling to speak of other things, and those things might be useful. I worry that he might withhold more.
We'll come to know that through Tira. If she will not disclose information that she commands him, then he might become a concern. But if he doesn't, to us in this council, I kind of reckon legally that's fair game. Like he was doing what was lawful in that moment, really, which shows a bit of his integrity for my mind. Or I'm getting duped, you know.
Yeah, no, like he's right that legally it's irrelevant. Like he's now here to serve you, and what he's done previously is not part of the job, you know. So, like,
Yep.
I think most maesters would be like, "Well, of course, my lord, I will tell you everything about, you know." And he's just like, "Nah, I'm here now. That's the important thing." So I think like legally he's right, but maybe like it's still rude or like
And suspect, like Laren says.
Yeah, I'm
Well-
not saying that it's lawfully he's, broken some sort of law, but it's just like, do we want somebody whose job is to give us information, like not
Exactly.
eagerly providing that information when we ask? Doesn't matter if he is legally allowed to refuse, it's still, concerning behavior for someone whose job it is to like divulge information and help us with things that we don't know.
His knowledge and life experience is to serve the house, whether it's a matter of pride or whatever. That shouldn't get in the way.
The thing that gives Morse the greatest concern is, in fact, the one thing that he can't really bring up or talk about, so he'll have to wait. But he is particularly concerned given what we saw people are capable of when it comes to, swearing to their god or whatever. He doesn't necessarily believe that Lawrence was brought back from the dead, but he saw like the conviction in that man. Could this man so easily scrub the drowned god from his soul, simply by tutorship at the Citadel? Would he be able to let that go? Could he be like a plant? But these things he cannot obviously draw attention to publicly.
I think maybe potentially it's known that the Citadel actually does a lot of politicking, you know? Like they choose their maesters who goes where quite carefully and deliberately. And so, it's possible that they have a hand in this. I mean, what he says is that the hope is because he is, or previously was, an Ironborn, that there's something there in terms of like curing those wounds or whatever. But, maesters have their own plots like everybody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And Morse isn't going to do anything about it or mention it at all. But at the same time, I don't think he has much knowledge of the Maester's subtle sort of attempts of mending old wounds in councils.
Speaking openly, sir, do we really need any of these maesters? Jeremy's good with birds. He could raise ravens for you to send to the other citadels. Apart from that, what use do they serve?
There are 5 people alive who would be dead if they weren't here. They're important people. That seems like plenty of reason.
I don't know. You're alive, but I don't know it. But I saw Master Timos. It was not by Master Timos that your life was saved, and he failed to save. He failed to save my child, and he almost killed Arya.
He didn't almost kill her. He saved her.
He glowers, but lets it drop.
And he helped the Lord Riswell as well.
Puh. I place more stock in my breeze and than in his healing knowledge, but as he will.
Yeah, Lawrence will kind of have a realization that like this is probably not the best time to like press issues of people's lives being at stake, and will back off even if he could say more.
I would not dismiss the power of the Maesters, Elston, even though they, like all of us, fail again. I cannot banish them. We need them for their skill and their knowledge and for their loyalty, which is more, as we know at this council, than blood or heritage or where one was born or where one was raised.
I remember that time that the Mirosi reader of cards, came to Blackmere when we were children, and he Lady Roswin's narwhal horn knife that had gone missing for a month, and he predicted the raid by the Iron Islanders, and after that Lord Willem had him consulted over everything, but you didn't trust him. He gave us barley cakes as children, and I liked him, but you never trusted him and never ate his barley cakes. And then that morning of the hunt, when everybody was out, he offered us barley cakes again, and I forgot to lock the doors. And he was leaving with all Lady Rosalind's jewels when you alerted the guards, and they stopped him and arrested him. All I ever thought was with the barley cakes, but you were sharper than me. So since then, I've relied more, and I know that you're a sharper judge of character than I am, and I'll bow to you on that one.
The sincerity couched in the oath days old made to keep a secret from my cousin is brutal, but Willard just won't flinch, even though I would quail, and he'll say, "My thanks, cousin. I'd forgotten the barley cakes," and he'll smile. So we are disposed now to watch Maester Dagon till the council is satisfied. Would that be amiable, Sir Morse?
It will always be as you please, Lord. And he gives an incline of the head.
I've often wondered, these maesters make an oath to the house, don't they?
Aye.
Do they make any oaths to, like, the Citadel? I mean, it's
They
just...
would. They give their oaths of celibacy and poverty.
Just wondering. Maybe I'll ask Timoth.
And so we resolved to sell the furs in Whitehill for what price we can, and I might go and visit her there. That Dagon shall build in the surrounds of House Martin. What other matters have we to pursue, you think?
As I understood it, we were to train against Ironborn raiders and try and get some skill in arms against try and train the men in night raiding, running in the dark, so we can respond to Ironborn raiders, and maybe even plan out a raid on the Iron Islands if the training goes well. I'm happy to.
Indeed.
I'm happy to. There are some good sailors in the area, Joe Kraken, etc. I'm happy to run the men through their paces. Activity like that suits me well.
Very good. Bring up a crew for the ships we've taken and re-equip them for slate purpose and with slate men. And seek Maester Dagon's help if you think you might need it. Otherwise, I'll entrust it to you. And there is money enough in that account for now You just need to see the port harbour master at Warrington. He has like the ship funds, I believe, and you've got the military ones.
And these thralls are, well, they're not thralls anymore, but you have sent them with Sir Lawrence and Alfstan, but if those lords would allow, we can dangle some coin and see if they like to go into the ships for coin, underpaid, like we said last time.
Fun ideas that might help their families establishing themselves in Blackrock and Lawrence's lands. If you can find those willing to sign on, we have more than enough gear to equip them. They may be loath to go back to the sea, but we can ask. Their skill might be needful.
What's the best way to fight when you're out on the boats then? Archers, is it?
And fire. Fire is a sailor's fear.
Oh, what about that burnt man? He might know about some kind of fire we could use.
More snorts.
No, though his price might be too steep for us to pay. The smoke, too, at sea mayhaps help in screening a retreat or covering passage, but archers, yes. Crossbowmen at closer range.
I think crossbowmen, perhaps more than archers. The winds are strong out on the seas, and I don't know how the winds affect archery, whether it's possible to...
Maybe you could take men from Warrington militia who are armed with crossbows, and you can put them to that, or their weapons to that, and see what works.
We can try the different and see which works.
Yep. We're going to mixed group of archers and crossbowmen. Because I think we'd be better off you like sailing and shooting than engaging on deck to deck against Ironborn. I think that'd hone us. So we need to be light, like mobile, and shoot from range. So with that in mind, you can requisition hand like crossbows and bows and arrows, and we can see what we can do there. Because we've got trained men with no purpose at the moment, or men in training with no purpose at the moment. So you could take the best from that pool and set them to that task.
I don't think we'll ever match the Iron Islanders on the sea. Our best bet is to train the men for land combat and hope to catch them on land.
Yeah, where our horse can cut them off from their supply and attack them at the sides. We don't need to beat the Iron Islanders on sea, we just need to be swift enough to get to wherever Tusk is tombed and steal it back from them. I know it was Wirrick's wish. And too long have they raided our shores and taken what they wished with impunity, without this king's law. So I intend to seize one if the old gods will allow me.
If the places that are within a few hours, 6 hours, maybe 8 hours of the shore are all stockaded and able to withhold, basically delay them until we can bring in reinforcements. That should be our first aim, and then maybe extend that inland, but start with the coastal settlements, stockade and make them slow down any Ironborn attack on them until we can bring up reinforcements.
So wall places in our domain as a priority from the coast inland?
The settlements on the coast, maybe we can. I sort of sketch out something which is a bit like a Motte and Bailey castle. If you have a highland behind a stockade, then if there are raiders, they can drive their possessions into this highland place, which will be harder to take, and a signal from the top will summon aid, and
Yeah.
basically
We have that system of riders too, like set up between the different places to like carry message till we centralize our cavalry. So we can just add on to it with that. Those two things together.
We've got signal fires too, my lord.
At Howling Hall, I remember.
Well, we tried to
environment.
set them up so they could be seen from wherever there's like a rookery, you know, because it's too far from the Tor to Belfry, but a raven can fly. So it's more like I've set them up so it's kind of like regional to wherever there's the closest raven, pretty much, to cover longer distances. But I was wondering, my lord, you've got a powerful good eye and mind for these things. If you were Ironborn, where would you attack along the Stony Shore? House Fisher, mayhap?
For what worth? There's nothing to take there that hasn't been taken. Though if they could seize the old holdfast, it would be harder for us to drive them out from there. As hard as them that it would be to escape from us capturing them, like holding siege of them there. So I don't think they would attack there. If I were them, I would sail up the Red Knife, past Holt's Dace lands, sack those places, stay on the northern banks of the river away from Ryder where their horse might hurt my men. But if I was an Islander, I wouldn't want to sack anywhere on the Stony Shore because there's not much here but in the rills where it's folly to try and raid. But yeah, up that river, which is why I want to secure House Holt to our own lands so we control that river that goes up and then splits further into the Stony Shore. That's a central point of like the Stony Shore safety.
Perhaps we should put a watchtower at the mouth of the...
I think Greyhold is such a thing, right? Like House Holt's tower is that thing.
Yeah, it's at the confluence of like the rivers and the mountains there. And sort of if you keep going from there, you eventually come to House, the Ironborn House.
Dace.
Yeah. You'll come to their house eventually. But yeah, like on the like their house is like sort of between the two rivers and like controls that area.
We could have men stationed there to like improve House Holt's defense if Lord Holt wouldn't be insulted by that.
So is there
Depends on if he's ever been raided.
Is there ravens at House Fisher?
I don't know.
We might want to sight a raven there and then have a watchtower right at the mouth of that river. If there's not, I'd be surprised if there's not a village there already. Yeah,
I imagine if they do have a maester, it would be as shitty as everything else about their house. But we made an accord. Victor Fisher, whoever Lord Fisher was, our second uncle or something, made an accord with him that his house would become bannermen of ours. Is that right, Lloyd? Did we establish that a few episodes ago? And their house will pass now heirless into us by Wober's blood. Is it Wober? Who is Darren's widow?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
So it's like basically they have no living heirs or whatever, and Simeon is the uncle.
Simeon, that's right. Yeah.
And he's sort of like despondent, I guess, and he's like, better to go to you than just to vanish, you know? Yeah. So that's the agreement. Is like when he dies, it'll pass into House Slate's control.
And that's where your mother is?
Yeah.
Depressing.
And probably Wober as well, right? If that's the case.
Yeah, I think like they're all at
we could Stonewatch it's called.
Yeah. Yep.
We could fortify that place and garrison men there as well. even though it's not a good place to raid for anything because there's nothing there, it is a good place if you want to launch an invasion of the Stony Shore, because there's a holdfast that you could probably take against a determined Stonewatch guard because they're just probably so fully equipped.
It's
And
also
then
a
use that
case
as a
that,
base from there to coordinate. Sorry?
it's been raided so frequently and so commonly, even if there's nothing there,
Yeah,
like many of
it's
the
just
houses
stones.
use it as a practice for their young raiders, you know? You could basically
Yeah, imagine they like
every
got to
single-
rush up with a bloody hand and put it on the walls of
Yeah,
stone.
exactly.
Watch and run back to your ship to prove you're a man or something.
Exactly like that, yeah. So it's like, it's just almost a tradition now for many Ironborn houses because there's no resistance there, you know? So
We could train men there. We could like just all of a sudden change it and they like running out of the gloom all these youths and then next minute crossbow fire or something and then horse ride out and start to show them, well, you can't train your boys here, that being the case. Maybe Lawrence could do that. I guess he's probably busy building stuff up in his place, but I don't know, what do you guys think of that? We could set up some ambushes in Stonewatch to kind of assert our dominance in the region there.
I would like to try and train the men against Ironborn. Yep.
We could have like, I think we've got about 150-ish kind of men split between mainly infantry and archers and then tiny men of horse. The horse already kind of in use. But we could have the archers set to crewing the ships with like 30 or 40 infantrymen and then have half what's left, say 30 men, like spears and stuff, to go down and hold Stonewatch and try and like set some ambushes there against training islanders.
Is 30 enough?
I reckon, I don't know. I'm just going pure off my imagination, but I imagine Uncle's Holdfast, if it had 30 good men in it, would be all the harder nut to crack. Else, why would it still be there? Like, it still must be a little stone nut to get into. And the reason it's so easy now is because House Fisher's power is withered so much. But I reckon if you had a proper garrison in there, it'd be tricky for a ship crew to come and hold these.
Like, a lot of the raiding that's done there is not on the actual holdfast, because that is like stone, and it's like on a spit of land, so it's like quite hard. Like, there's a little land bridge that leads to it, and so it's like not easy to get to that. But it's the raiding of the lands around it, you know. They don't have the men to like control that.
What season do they hone their men, or is it kind of just erratic and opportunistic?
I think Simeon would have told you it's like basically as soon as spring starts, he'll start getting them pretty frequently, and so he'll take a lot of the people who live by the coast. They just start to move closer and closer to the castle when spring comes. The castle, it's a tower more than a castle, you know.
Because even if there's no other incentive other than like blooding the young Ironborn, there's always food. Always after food, you know. And if they're threatening them, it's going to be hard for them.
Yeah, I imagine House Fisher has like their wealth in fish stocks and fish traps and chancing the good waters where Ironborn sometimes lurk for fish, for big hauls.
On other fronts, my lord, we've got all the wardens here for the time being. I thought maybe we could kind of divvy them up like North Warden, South Warden, on the coast there, like a West one and an East Warden, and then one of us can kind of stay closer by the Tor or move between them, you know, and up near Foxden, we've done what we can to do a path through closer to White Hill, which maybe you can see on your way over.
I would like that well. I'm glad to hear that Foxden is a fine place to build upon.
And we've chosen a few good spots, my lord, where we can have some deadfalls or drop some trees for like, if, well, I don't know, it might never happen, but if any soldiers or something was to come through, or bandits, we could have some ambush spots, you know?
Fine idea. Perhaps you could use some of the some of the coffers of your rank to employ runners, boys and girls in the villages who are in need of work and can be quick afoot and to better coordinate your wardens. I think they're better used spread out than concentrated. So like that. Who will go then to face the Iron Men at Stone Watch?
I will take 30 men and train them.
He'll look to Lawrence to see if he'll go too, or if it will just be Alpha alone who goes with the men. Because I imagine it's like their purview, Master of Horse and Master of Arms.
Yeah, Lawrence would be happy to go if it would be helpful, and especially if he was commanded to.
Like the building and stuff, it can be overseen, by whoever you put in charge up there. Like I don't think you need to be there to
It
watch the
needs
rigs.
Lawrence as much. It needs his funding, which is already kind of there. So,
exactly.
well, yeah, cool.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
once you
cool.
give the commands and you pay them money, then they're going to build it whether you're there or not.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, then with that in mind, he'd be happy to continue delegating kind of home turf out to the second in command and gear up for combat if such a thing is on the table.
So we could have 50 men go to be put under training by the port master at Warrington on the Ironborn ships that we've captured and intend to recrew, while you two take 30 men of mixed infantry and ranged forces to Stonewatch to ambush Ironborn down then. And Jeremy's going to coordinate the wardens and presumably maybe go north with me to Lady Kayla. I don't know.
Yeah.
Would you go on, Jeremy, if I came up to Foxden and then went on to Whitehill, would you come with, or would you do other stuff?
If your lord would like it, of course.
Yeah, that'd be good because I don't want to take Morse.
Yeah.
So that would work well.
If it
I
pleases
don't
you,
think it'd
Lord.
be wise to take Morse. Sorry, I should rephrase. So you go.
What about the plan to travel to the wall? When was that planned and when do we do it?
When the weather is fairer and our place here is surer, once we're sure of Maester Dagon, once we're equipped as well as can be against the Ironborn, and before the autumn snows. But a date any finer than that may be hard to discern, cousin, though I too wish to see our kin up there. Do you have any ideas on the matter?
No, that seems fine. Though
There would be the matter of who would command in Black Tor if we were both to go to the wall. Our wives find replacements. Barrier and Tira together.
Alston frowns, thinking of Arya. They haven't been as... There's been a certain distance between them more recent, or where once she relied on him for sort of strength and would snuggle up against him. Now it's like his arm is around a separate piece of rock, and she seems to take less comfort from his presence at the moment.
We can think on these matters longer when the time is at hand, but I do not think we will go to the wall in spring, cousin.
I think Arya would do well for a change of scene, perhaps visiting her her friend Wyler in her new lodgings, and
Her own family along the way.
traveling back with her parents to Grey Fork, and then moving on to the Rills from there. Maybe a change would do her good, he says.
And then back here, or to your lands in Blackrock if they're ready, fitting.
Yes, we can decide at that time. Blackrock will be her eventual home, but we will see whether it is ready when she returns.
You would not wish to go with her?
I will visit from time to time, but I think she would do well. She needs a change of place, and I have many duties here. He looks a bit haunted by your questions.
As you say, cousin, my lord, he'll stop the inquiry at once, sensing that.
If it please you, Lord, and not to add to this feast of plans that lays before us, but there is another matter that I would ask your permission for.
Speak it.
It is a matter that I would address with this new maester of ours, Maester Dagon. Specifically about Sir Conrad Greymane. This is the name of this scar-lipped kraken you bid me to meet at High Point. Now, this maester claims he no longer has any affiliation with the Ironborn, yet he does have an affiliation with learning and knowledge of our neighbouring rivals. Surely he will, if he's been bidden to serve here. And he smiles, newly bolstered honour from the melee means that I may no longer be anonymous to them, rendering this planned ambush of this trader in the Wolf's Wood an obvious trap. But I would still pursue this business, as you asked me, Lord, if it is your will.
Indeed, but at a distance, for I believe too that Lady Kayla and this Scarlet Kraken know you well who you are, if not before, certainly by now. Word of your ascendance will be carried by Sir Callan and the rest who bear back Sir E's bones.
Would you still have me speak with the Maester? He did seem a bit touchy on the subject of the Ironborn.
Indeed. And I think you should look to our interests here when Jeremy and myself go north to Lady Kayla.
If that is your will, Lord.
Lady Tira will need guidance and a firm hand beside her.
Morse does not know what to do with that. It is a responsibility that he has not received before. But he gives a nod and says, "My thanks, Lord."
We'll make our preparations, and Alston, you can draw up the lists of who will go to Warrendon and who will go south with yourself and Lord Lawrence to Stonewatch and to Uncle Simeon. If you've not returned or seen appropriate action by the time I'm back from High Point, I will come with our lords here if we are able to see what we can, perhaps with the ships too, progress dependent. Are there any other matters at hand? Or is this to be the will of the council? Very good. Then I will go now with my wife. We'll be undisturbed for some time. We'll see to our duties. And that it'll stand up, and we'll conclude the council unless there's anything else thereafter.
As you say, my lord.
Alright, so plans are put in place. The night after this one, Alfie, as you're like trying to sleep and not succeeding in the way that has been the case for a while now, ever since. It's quite late, and there's like a sudden like Bran puts his head up towards the door, but then sits back down, and the door opens and it's Ranvi. And she like walks over towards you in the bed with Arya, and like she just gets into the bed behind Arya, and like pulls her into a hug, and just starts shh, shh, and then sort of looks to you and urges you to move forward as well.
Again, he reaches out and takes he tries to offer and reach out, as he has done sometimes over the past few days, to Arya, to see if she responds to him, or whether it's just like hugging rock again.
It's all right to cry, child. It's all right for you too, my son. You have to let out the pain or it'll burn you from inside. And you need each other for this. And Arya will begin to sort of sob quietly. And then in that, will like take your hand. And Randy will stay and just sort of like shush and comfort as best she can for a while before like stepping out of the bed and leaving again.
Okay, shall we?
Is there anything else that anyone would like to do?
I think after the council, Morse would make a point of trying to catch Lawrence somewhere where it's just the two of them. So, Jeff, you can tell me where Lawrence might go or where Morse might be able to run into you.
I don't think it'd be that difficult to find him, especially if they're getting ready to, at least relatively soon head out for combat. I'd imagine, gathering his own supplies, making sure that everything's accounted for to set out again.
So as you're sort of preparing supplies and things like that and readying yourself, you look up from the work that you've been doing to see Morse standing there. He has a smile on his face, and clearly he's curious. And he says, "You and I haven't really spoken since my arrival here. I would like to amend that now. We found ourselves in a strange situation before."
Yeah, Lawrence will kind of jump ever so slightly, kind of lost in thought, like the sudden appearance of this person who I imagine was like silent until then, kind of disrupting his activity. Oh, Sir Morse, yes. Things have been eventful since you've arrived. We haven't had the time. My apologies for that.
There is no apology to give, Lord. Morse remembers the man's rank now standing before him. You'll forgive me, but I'm curious. The matter that was at hand in Lord Slate's council chamber. It was curious to me. I'd like to know what happened from your perspective.
Sorry, is Morse referring to the thing with the sorcerer the other night?
Yeah, well, there was only them in the room with him and
Yeah.
Lord Slate.
Yeah, Lawrence's brow will kind of furrow. Clearly, it's been on his mind a lot since then. Plenty too. He'll put away whatever he was kind of working with, whatever supplies he was packing. He'll just set it down and stand. It's difficult to piece together, even myself being the one who experienced it. I was in the joust. I unhorsed the other rider. I was wounded, taken to the maester's tower. He said that I was bleeding internally, and that it would take quite the miracle, he'll say the word with like an obvious wince, to save me. He tried. At that point, the pain had me unconscious. I wasn't quite aware of what he was doing. And then, sometime later, apparently it was hours. To me, it felt like it could have been 5 seconds or it could have been 30 years. It's impossible to tell. I woke up, and the room was covered in blood, more blood than I've seen. And I've seen plenty of it. And my wound was stitched, healed. And when I stood up, the maester saw me, went pale, and ran for me, as if he had seen some horrible monster stand up before his own eyes. And he said that he knew I was dead, that he checked me, and he saw that I was dead. And in that moment, I felt more alive than I had for some time. Though, as I mentioned, the strange chill, strange emptiness, that was part of it too.
You are looking at Morse, and it is clear to you that he doesn't really believe what you're saying. But he says, I believe that you believe that happened, Lord. And you will never find me questioning that, or indeed mentioning this to you ever again. For it is Lord Slate himself that ordered that this matter not be spoken of again. But you know, and I know. And if you would discuss this further sometime, you will know that you will have my ear.
You know, it's funny, it happened to me, but I find it difficult to believe myself. The only thing that has me questioning is the fact that I'm alive. It's the only part of it that doesn't make sense. It's the only part that I can't reckon with some other part of me. I know it sounds absurd. I'll be the first one to say it.
It might be, or it might be the thing that doesn't make sense, Lord. But it is the one thing that matters. You live.
Lawrence will like begin talking again. Like it's clear at this point that he like realizes that he's probably like oversharing and that you didn't ask. But he'll like say anyways. Just doesn't make sense to me. I spend my entire life praying to the seven, asking them for help, for guidance. And I leave my homelands. My lord dies. My brother dies. Everyone I know dies. Every place I go, I end up leaving to even worse places. And then suddenly some man comes in and says he worships a fire god. And he tells me that he brought me back to life. It's the only time that I've ever heard of any of this prayer doing anything. And yet it's insane. I can't believe him. There's no way what he says could be. But and just kind of like shake his head as he realizes that like he's now just divulging like random personal stories to a man who didn't ask.
They weren't asked for, but indeed Morse did approach you, and you see no dismissal in his look at you when you say these things. You are a ordained in the light of the seven. You are a knight. Believe it or not, I'm a knight too. And it can mean many different things. We're on both two sides of the same coin, Lord.
Just a charlatan, right? Just a man taking advantage of a strange situation to look more glorious. That's all he was, right?
Indeed, Lord. The same could be said about me. The right place at the right time. And now I have a title. And I'm sworn and a sworn sword.
Sometimes I feel like we couldn't be more opposite, and that you're everything that I despise about knights. Opportunistic, slimy, hard to pin down, even harder to understand. And I'm a glorious knight in the light of the seven, rising to just lordhood. But then sometimes I worry that we're the same. That I'm no more noble, no less opportunistic than any of these other people here. I just call it virtue. Because I can.
Moore smiles and says, I'm glad you're able to speak your mind so easily to me, Lord.
I shouldn't, to be honest, and I know that. But I had to say it to someone, and you're here.
I was more referring to the apt description you gave of me, Lord. But most don't say it to my face.
Must be this lordly privilege going to my head. I get to say whatever I want now.
That you do, Lord. I bid you ride well. And if you would discuss this matter again, well, I'm the only person you can talk about it now. That and Lord Slate.
It's true. If the cold at the edges of the fire start to nick at me, maybe I'll take you up on that. Hopefully, I won't need to.
He gives a nod and allows you to continue your preparations, and he sweeps away.
Clarence will have this moment as you leave of just like shaking his head to himself of, did I just like really divulge my deepest insecurities to like this slimy scumbag who will undoubtedly use them against me? Like just realizing just the insanity of everything. I'm just like, oh god, what did I do?
All right, gents. I think if there's nothing else, you might call it there.
A throwaway
Yeah.
one line. The next morning, you see that Arya and Alfie have gone for a morning swim together.
Ah.
the healing waters of the mere.
Yep.
Oh, that's a glorious thing to see.
Do you want to chat to Timos now, Quo?
Oh, we can save it till next session if you want, man.
Yeah, okay.
Oh.
Let's end on that nice little note.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for watching. If you did, Keel and Kevin Wilson. Bye.
And